Well, boys, he finally lived up to his name. It's Ahmed. So, this is Rampart by Spa. If you haven't already figured it out, when you're in T-Spawn, don't turn around. You'll be greeted with some N64 level visuals. This is also something that was made for the mapping contest, the Exotic Places mapping contest. And this is a map that has quite a lot of interesting geometry and interesting angles to take fights from. Kind of a bizarre, like, inverse of the previous map that we just handled, which was, if I'm not mistaken, it was... I honestly already forgot the name. Fuck, wow, that's embarrassing. But you can just go and look it up. I honestly, I'm never going to remember it. But here we go, we got some pop in already. That's pretty epic. And there's another bug over here, actually, where if you walk your way down in this direction, and then you jump, you'll see a nice reflection bug. So that's something to remember. Some stuff for the developer to immediately polish up if they ever end up seeing this video. Otherwise, it's just a reminder that you should actually walk through your maps once before pushing publish to workshop, or whatever the button looks like from the editor. And so, yeah, that is that. That's where we begin. We'll start off looking at mid, actually, because this map is fairly complicated on face value. So as soon as you end up in T-Spawn, you can walk into this little area over here, which is quite scenic, but also bucks the trend of immediately allowing you to go left. You actually have to walk a little bit more to go left, and when you do, it's still kind of a weird roundabout area, as I'll show off in a second. And naturally, you can take a right, or you can not even go over here at all and take a right on the lower area. The upper area and the lower area are two different routes that you can get to take to B. We'll show those off a little bit later. Now we're in this room. There's some... I think that's probably not Japanese text, but somebody can post in the comments about how I'm not a weebit or something. If you take a left, you'll be heading towards A, but you also have this lovely peek out into middle, which is quite scenic as well. One of the things that this map does okay when you're not looking behind T-Spawn and not looking at the wrong angle at all of these busted lightings is that just on face value, when you first take a quick look at it, it's a relatively clean map. There's not really too much clutter. And, oops, wrong key. And that's something that I like in general. So, yeah, points, I suppose. So as you can see, you can stand on these little bits of metal. That'll be important for aggressive counter-terrorist units that want to try and... I think you can't really self-boost, I don't think. I'm pretty sure you have to be boosted by a teammate, but obviously that is something that you can do. Perhaps there could even be some weird run boost that you could do from deeper into mid. This is probably where most snipers are going to be playing around, even if they're not exactly in this little valley over here that looks out into the front room, storage room area, and obviously has enough cover that you can hold an angle from here, or like reposition and try to hold an angle from like over here. I don't actually know how visible you are if you're in this position. That's roughly where I was, so that'll give me enough of an understanding of what's going on here. So, yeah, actually, it looks like you're not very visible whatsoever. I'm not able to get that... Oh, Chuck the Cuck popped up for a split second there. Yeah, now you can do it. So, your enemy is barely visible. I guess if they're holding an angle that's somewhat similar to that, they might even be a bit more visible. But that would allow you to peek over here in this direction, over towards the upper part. So already you have a lot of angles that you can play around just in middle alone that allow you to reposition as both teams. Because obviously you can approach this... If you want to call this window, I suppose you could get away with calling it that. If you wanted to approach this window area and try to take a peek against it, you could do so as a terrorist from both the front angle, over there, that little door, or if that gets smoked off or whatever, because it is relatively easy to cordon off with just some utility. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of lineups people could find were they to play this. You can also take care of it from the perspective of over here, which would let you do whatever it is you wanted to do. Try to peek out over here, but the problem, the sticking point there is you are much more exposed if you do anything other than try to peek out from this angle, right? I guess you could probably try to jump over here, but that is a really long animation. It's like if you're ever doing an op duel or something in the mid of Mirage, one thing I've heard is basically do not ever try to jump up on top of the boxes in cart at top of mid. from the terrorist perspective, it will almost always slow you down, and you won't be able to take a shot quickly enough for the other person to reposition on you. And so that, I mean, maybe it could catch people off guard or something at lower levels, but when fast reaction times are a given based on the level of play that you're seeing, you're not going to get away with something like that. It's even more damning in this particular case. Now, the wrinkle here is that if you are going to be moving over here as a terrorist, as you can see, there is a vantage point that is very safe from most angles, if not all angles. If you wanted to, this is CT spawn over there, by the way. So CT spawn just allows you to walk over here and hold this to see if they're trying to do something like that. Obviously, that's a fairly niche play just because of the fact that, well, you give up a lot of map control if you're having somebody sit there for a while. But I could see a realm where that's like one of the B rotator, not the B anchor, but the B rotator, or maybe even the mid player, honestly, could just be holding a very passive angle like this, and then just, you know, obviously if they have an actual op, well, that's still not the right key. They could, you know, you could be doing something like this, holding this, and they have to be in this position when they are moving up. And then they can just flick down over here. So we're kind of getting into the minutia already. I know. I'm going to try to accelerate this. But I really like the fact that there's so many different permutations to the mid play. It seems like that was thought of deliberately by the map developer. They realized one of the things that makes really fun, functional mid areas of any map, or really just any action of any map, is that you can have duels in the entry points, or you can take a lot of positions on both sides, and some of them are more open to being negated through utility than others. Like, obviously, it's very difficult to smoke off this entire area that would be effective for the terrorists from the perspective of the counter-terrorists, but it's comparatively easy to just drop a smoke like over here or something to block off anybody trying to snipe from that position. Also, nice. How do people just never test their maps? I don't understand that. So anyway, we've got that out of the way. I'm pretty sure you can boost onto this if you really wanted to. What the fuck is my key? Hey, I think it's you. I think he's also stuck, though. Maybe they're all stuck. Oh. There we go. Well, now that we've done that, embarrassingly, yeah, you can get up here. Oh, you can even stand on this. I think that's a glitch. You should not be able to do that. That would be a Olaf Boost 2.0, because you can see pretty far down, actually. I'm also not sure, like, it looks like you can jump up over here, so if you were to put another man down here, and, if he would fucking do anything. Alright, there we go. There we go. Yeah, so you could obviously just stand on another man if you really wanted to, but that would take 3 people, so that would be pretty epic. But, again, cool that there's like a little bit of a wrinkle you can do there. Something that would probably end up being a little too annoying to deal with, actually, because considering how much cover that actually affords you, you can... Maybe if you, like, moved the box or added a smaller box or something that you also couldn't jump on, you'd have to really disfigure this cover area in a way to make this reasonable. But the fact that you can be so far back means that it's very difficult to actually get a read on that if you're coming out as the T's. So anyway, I don't normally show off mid first, but I figured it was warranted in this particular map. We're going to go all the way back to where you would be going to A from this perspective. Now, this is more evidence of the map being very minimalistic. You know, there's giant areas like this where there's really no cover and invisible walls and N64 graphics. Sometimes minimalism works, and sometimes it's just ugly to look at and has very strange lighting configurations. The map was very clearly not finished, I think. But the gameplay area is... this map has actually been something that I've played more than most of the maps that were produced for the MapCore contest. I think it was like this one, Basalt, and maybe like 1 or 2 others, like Feast and... no, I think those are the top 3 that I've played in general. And so, believe me when I say... it's been fun actually playing the map, and so there was some focus put into that. This is the rotation from A side to mid. Notably, it's something that probably benefits the CTs more to have than the Ts, but the Ts obviously want to deny the CTs of having any part of the map that they can use effectively, so it still works as an avenue, like an asset, part of the map that you want to wrest control of away from your opponent. And so the terrorist objective for taking this area and taking fights in this area should be to leverage this little elevated position to peek down over there. But they also do have to worry about a CT-sided rotation, assuming they're not able to get mid control. So mid control, just having mid control, not necessarily a person in this area, an operative in this area. As terrorists, it does allow you to stop the counter-terrorists from being able to use this rotation, which is obviously fairly important as a very quick flank if they were able to do it. You can already imagine the clutches in your head of people running from around mid-CT spawn area into this area to try to pull off like a 1v2 or just to try to flank. You know, I think Vertigo has a lot of spots like this. Obviously, if we talk about maps that aren't complete shit, we could talk about, you know, obviously, like even Mirage has some avenues of that where there's like 3 or 4 different ways into each bomb site. So you can already imagine stuff like that happening, and it is a relatively quick and snappy rotation, despite the fact that it seems like it would be very difficult to actually get to A from there in such a short amount of time. One thing that I am noticing, though, is that even though I only have 2 other people in the server with me, and they're both bots and they're both frozen over in middle, I am finding it that I'm constantly second-guessing myself and thinking, oh, is that a counter-terrorist over there? Like, it's almost like, I don't think it's deliberate, but it's something that is rather pervasive throughout the map, at least as we get closer to the bomb sites. And that is something that is probably going to throw people off before they just get it ingrained into their muscle memory. And I guess that could probably be abused now because, of course, the map core contest was made and held and probably finished before the operatives even hit, or maybe it was finished as the operatives hit. So people weren't thinking about that, obviously, back then, and nor should they have to. They certainly should not have to do that. But, you know, Valve likes money. You know, you guys watch enough of these videos, you know that I don't like Valve because Valve likes money too much. And, you know, that's just how it is. But that being said, this is indeed the A bomb site. Feels a little roomy, huh, Mike? That's Mike, by the way. He's hanging. Probably could use some new boots and a new boner. But here we are. This is a bomb site. It is relatively roomy. It almost feels like a level out of a Wolfenstein game or something, and not just because of the World War II aesthetics, but I think also just because of the fact that you'd expect to be moving a lot faster than in Counter-Strike to actually take full advantage of this area. I don't really mind that. I think larger bomb sites are something that sit with me a little bit better than if you remember, cast your mind way back to some analysis that I made for Graveyard, which is a map that was also made for this contest. And that map, I can plan on this box. Nice, points for planning on the box. I don't know why I can't plan on this one. So it's probably not intentional, but points anyway. Good job. Anyway, as I was saying, Graveyard has, like, basically the entire map is too big. This one, just this bomb site, is kind of big. And I'm interested to see how it would play out. You would probably have to condense a lot, but there's some interesting jumps you can make. Like, you can do this. And, well, I'm bad, but, you know, I'll blame lag. And, yeah. Fuck. But you can do that. I did that before. So I like the fact that there's some element of movement skill being rewarded in the map, and that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't think you can stand up here. Even if you did a double boost. Can't stand on Mike's head. But yeah, just the sheer scale of this area does make it feel like it belongs in maybe a different game. But that being said, I'm still interested in seeing how gunfights would actually work in this particular context. I think that the approach has probably some problems just based on the fact that there's almost no cover leading up to this area. This is one area where I will throw my critic hat into the ring and say, you know, yeah, you've got this piece of cover for the terrorists to use, but it's because it's pretty much the only piece of cover. It's not like they can make too many interesting decisions. Contrast that directly with the mid area where you can make so many different interesting repositions and mind games and adaptations, and just it's kind of obvious what might be the first move that you might make that's like the highest percentage play in general for first timers. Like, it feels very intuitive to play around mid. Whereas if you contrast that with this area, it's like, okay, I guess I can go one way and peek that, and otherwise, like, what do you do? I guess you can't really be seen unless they're pushing, so you could do this, but then you just have to peek from here. It's like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but you like to have like 3 or 4 people being able to be useful in most cases when they're pushing a site from an angle that's as ubiquitous as this. Like, this is basically going to be the de facto rotation to A, because they're not going to want to have to take mid control just to get to A. So the terrorists are going to be coming down here a lot, but really you can only get utility out of like 2 people and then 1 person throwing a flashbang, which in my mind doesn't really count. It's not really the same thing as multiple people, like 3 people or 4 people trying to actually hold angles and stuff. So what I would say is, looking at this, we have a situation where we're dealing with the opera's going to try to make a pick over here. Then you're going to have like one guy over here, and then you're going to have one guy over in the this area, like throwing a flash and then holding for a flank. He could get boosted over here in this area and get destroyed, I guess, which is kind of an interesting and funny adaptation I would like to see happen in the middle of a game. And yeah. Then you have a situation where you're dealing with, like, where can the CTs go by contrast? Well, they can obviously just stay inside the site and try to work for picks. Unfortunately, this area is not playable space, but this window is here for throwing grenades. I say unfortunately, it would probably make the CT side of this area even more broken, but I think it could be an interesting adaptation anyway. That being said, yeah, you could have the CTs basically staying inside, but if they do decide to push, even they can't really make those significantly interesting decisions. Like, remember where you're going to be, generally speaking. You're going to be maybe a little bit further back than that. But, okay, so they can see you just like you can see them. Like, there's not really any position you can go besides maybe here. And this is like a one-and-done position at best. So you're not going to have the luxury of just being able to, peek out and then still live. So you basically have 2 positions you can go to. Hey, look, another mic. So you can come out of the CT spawn, which is again over here, and you can make your rotation. You can either go lower into the site, you can wrap all the way around over here, which takes you to an overlook into the site where you can barely see people coming in, and even then I'm pretty sure they can sneak by just walking all the way over here and then doing this, and then maybe you'll barely see them or something. So you wouldn't want to necessarily have your only guy on the A site holding from this position. I guess you could have them hold from like this position, and then like take a peek, try to make a pick over here. And then after he fires off a shot, well, I mean, I'm assuming he's hopping, but it would probably be better to have a rifle in that position. But you could either, get a kill, wait for them to push, and then if they push you from the other side, you could try to like jump down and then drop in here. And that would be pretty effective, I think, if the guy was peeking you from over in this angle, like coming out from over here. Or if you get flashed or something, you can drop off. And obviously, if more of them come over there and you don't feel like fighting them, you can just quickly jump over here and then bang out, or bail out, as it were. I don't know. You can bang too. I don't really care. But I like that. Like, I like the gunfights you can have while on the site, but the approach seems very drab, very straightforward. And as with many things, when it comes to making a map or even something as basic as like writing a story or something, the less the fewer number of choices that you can make, the less impact you have by making that choice. Because if there was really only one choice you could make the entire time, then it's not like it really matters that you made the choice, because literally anybody could have made that choice. Instead of you being able to express your personality by making a different choice, right? So if we imagine Chuck the Cuck as an epic counter-terrorist, or I guess if we imagine Ahmed as an epic terrorist, he comes in here and he's trying to make a decision as to how he's going to push A, and he can either go A or A. Like, he has no other choice. I mean, he could try to wrap around or something, but that seems like a very low percentage chance. So if he's just trying to come in here and bang heads, I mean, the CTs are pretty much guaranteed to be able to, I guess they can use like that window for flashes themselves and try to peek out here. But this is a very unfavorable position, I feel like, because there's a few angles that they can be hit from. If they're not already watching this position, they can be hit from over there. They can be hit from over here / here. So there's like those 2 angles. And if they push further out, maybe they could do like a joint collaborative push between this guy and then the guy who's in the rotation spot, if there is somebody in that area. That's pretty much it, though. Like, there's not really that much that they can do as a counter-terrorist to counter Ahmed, and Ahmed can't really make that many different decisions himself. So if we want to write a story where Ahmed gets a 1v5, triple headshot, spin 360, and gets signed to phase, then we need to be able to do that by giving him many different choices to make. Also, I failed to fucking jump again. So in a position like that, I would say the approach to A could use some modification. You wouldn't really have to change that much about the layout, I don't think. Maybe you could have a position like this. Maybe this is like a ladder over here. Maybe you could rework this into like a ladder right here or a straight up staircase right here that would create more cover. Maybe there could be like a crate over here or one of these. Like you could rework one of those to be like sticking out right here. And so if the T's have a good spawn, they can try to get there. I mean, remember that the terrorists spawn is all the way over here. Then they have to go here, take a left, take a right, and then they're here. Like, yeah, the CT rotation is probably similar in time, but that's still a lot for both teams to have to deal with just to get to this position. And at that point, it's like, oh, well, either they're here and one of us dies, or like there's not really, again, there's not that much that you can do to be different, to be special, to be a lovely snowflake and destroy everybody in a massive snowstorm. So I'm just saying, this place could use some snow. So that being said, there's a lot that I would hazard a guess this would, improving this area would improve the map generally speaking. So that's all I'll say on that. Now I've said my piece. Nice little control tower over here that allows when you rotate through CT spawn / mid. Here, I'll just show this from this angle. Otherwise, it might get a little confusing. Oh yeah, I guess I'll show the lower angle over here. So you come out of CT spawn, you take a left, you come down these stairs, and then you're at that control panel over here. As a retake, trying to do a retake of some sort, this angle is a nightmare because you've got to take care of, like, before you even talk about everything to your right, you're coming over here. They could be over here. They could be, you can't go underneath the stairs, but you can be sitting behind here, obviously, and you're holding it from this angle so that you could be watching it from there. You could obviously be watching it from, well, I guess you wouldn't be doing that, but you could be watching it from like over here or just standing right here, right? And waiting for them. So, and, those are those two positions. You could be here waiting for them to come out once they get a little bit further. You could be just sitting over here or elevated, sitting over here. There's so many different positions where you could be. And so I think I speak for everybody here when they say this angle is a real tough son of a bitch to retake from. But that being said, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. And it's not a CT exclusive thing, as I'll show in a moment. So you can also choose to go up instead of taking a right as from that position in the CT. And you like to see this A here, this giant A. And yeah, you can fall down here. Now, notably, you will take fall damage if you just fall. But it's only 3 because it's the magic number. And if you keep yourself over here, this little slope helps you not take damage. So there you go. Something to learn. And that's another thing that you can do if you get mid-control. So pretty epic. So again, T's get mid-control. They can either flank from that angle or they can come down here. Obviously, CT's coming from mid to try to retake can do the same thing. That's one point I will give to the developer. It seems like those are two spots where you can instantly get into a position to either retake or take in the first place, depending on what team you're at, depending on what you're trying to do. Now, obviously, again, that's the staircase up from before. If we go all the way back over here, we're in CT spawn. We come up over here and then storage room. Lovely call out. You can take a right and you'll come up in the same position. One thing that I do think is a little weird is that it feels kind of strange to have such a large set of rooms connected to each other. The storage room and then the basement callouts are, it seems like a lot of hubbub just to get from one place to another if there's only one path that you can take at this point, or I guess really two paths. You can obviously come up over here to retake around. It's probably fine, but it is something that I feel like could have been improved in some capacity. Also, as you can see, you can do this, which is probably just a very evil lurk spot for the terrorists to be in, to force the CTs to clear that every now and again, should they decide to try to make the rotation could be executed. Whatever, that's fine too, I suppose. Now on the B side of things, I haven't showed off anything related to B, but the CT rotation to B is relatively basic. You just go that way. I just wanted to also illustrate that coming in here from the terrorist side, you probably have to worry about some guy in here with a shotgun, hopefully. And I hope he's on Simple Stream. Then we get to B. So B is that giant cannon over there. This little upraised area is a little weird. You also have a very low skybox over here, or collision. Because obviously, as you can see, you can throw nades through it. But it's a very low collision for some reason. I don't know why. That should probably be fixed, because every time I try to jump off of this to get a little bit more airtime, I can't. So it would be nice to fix that. Otherwise, you have this room. I feel like this room is going to be home to a large number of gunfights. And just in general, again, like the bomb site gunplay tends to be pretty exciting. So this back room here, this office area, will lead you directly to the bomb site. Now, notably, you cannot plant anywhere in this area, only on the inside this ring here. And that is pretty important for a variety of reasons, because it limits the opportunity that the terrorists have to have a safe plant, for one, and then after they find a plant that might be safe, it might not be great for post-plant scenarios where they can easily hold an angle or get a Molotov lineup or whatever. Also, obviously, as you can see, these are fine to throw grenades through and stuff. But, I'm sure people will find some lineups should they want to. Also, this gun has collision, unfortunately. But you could probably do something like this. And that would burn the Molotov spot, or the bomb spot over there. So I could see that working. And that was the first time. Didn't think about that whatsoever, by the way. But yeah, so there's a couple of different positions there. But one of the key things about this bomb site, which I think is really cool, is that you actually have a spot over here. It's like really efficient use of the map where you have a small area that still provides a really cool angle. It's actually like the opposite of the A-bomb site in that sense, because the A-bomb site is so roomy by comparison to this one, where it feels much more compact and your decision making feels a little bit more valued as a result of that, because there's less spots for you to be in, but each spot has its own degree of strengths and weaknesses in a more pronounced and defined way than the A side. So if they were coming over here, you could position yourself right here. Obviously, you're then open to the rotation from there, which I haven't shown yet, and the rotation from there, which I haven't shown yet, and obviously the rotation over here, which I vaguely recall might require a boost. I'll take a look at that in a second. But just the fact that you could be holding as a T and coming from this angle, and then, hey, nobody came and peeked me, I'm going to go over here. Like that, the fact that that's an option is really cool, I think, and will actually result in, counter-terrorists unironically just throwing a smoke over here, which I think is hilarious. Just so that they can get over here. It's not necessarily a terrible thing either, but, you smoke that off, you kind of create some cover over here, but I just like the fact that it's a possibility. It's really neat. So, I haven't really talked about the sewers yet. I guess we could do that next. But this is the bomb site. It's pretty neat. This little overlook over here is a nice, aggressive angle to hold from. Peeks right down into the terrorist walkway over here, the upper part that leads to B. So you could get opt without even knowing that you could get opt as soon as you walk over here, basically. So, pretty cool. But obviously, you could just hug the right side of the wall to avoid that. You can also drop down or get boosted up into this area. It does require a boost if you are all the way down here, which is, again, the lower area from the B-side rotation. And this can also lead you into mid. So this is the sewer network. So this is the mid connector area, which will eventually lead you out into B, but obviously can be a fairly fast flank into mid should you be trying to pincer onto it. And mid, in that sense, actually has 3 different entrances, 2 of which are, I would say, well, I guess one of which is CT, one of which is T, and then the other of which is kind of neutral. I guess it's almost like Underpass and Mirage, where it's used by both teams. And sometimes, I guess in the modern meta, it's probably used even more so by counter-terrorists than it is by terrorists. But in this case, the rotation, I feel like, is a little bit less favorable for the counter-terrorists, and just the angles as well. Like, the terrorists have an easier time clearing because they know that they're either mid, which they probably have eyes on, so they know, oh, nobody's over there, or they're over here at best, right? And so you could smoke that off. You could get a Molotov. Obviously, utility could be used against you as well. But I like the fact that there's a little bit more of a favoring for the terrorists in that particular angle, because it helps the CTs not get too comfortable. And they obviously can't have eyes on the rotations of the terrorists in the same way that the terrorists in middle can have eyes on who's on the middle side. So it's a little bit more room for the terrorists to gather information in that sense. Meanwhile, this breaks open, so just a little bit of obviously a grenade will do it, an op shot, as you just saw, will do it. It's fairly interesting in that sense. Obviously, this big open area is useful for lobbing grenades through. But, yeah, I really like the fact that you can open that up. I don't know that it really necessarily needs to be something that you shoot to open up or whatever. It might be fine to just swap it out for a door that you press E on. In this case, I'm not really seeing why it was changed, but it's kind of like basically the nuke door that leads into the vent, except you don't need to throw a grenade to open it. You can just shoot it with an op or a couple of shots of a M4 or something. And I guess that's fine. It is a little weird. There's this giant crate in the middle of the area over here, which does shield you from being destroyed by that anyway, but it does mean that if you want to exit after that, you do have to contend with anybody who's holding an angle. And that means, well, that means what it means. This rotation obviously leads you up over into that direction and past another mic, love mic, and that is that. So that's the overview of the entire map. There's a lot of angles to play from. I didn't really cover too much the post-plant scenarios you might encounter in B beyond what you'd be looking at over towards the CT side, but I do think, once again, that if we look at the angles that are available for both teams, you know, you've got gunfights that can happen over here. Yeah, you have to blow that up first, but again, it doesn't take that much. You get gunfights that can happen over in this angle, this lineup. And I would say that even, honestly, if you wanted to get super aggro as either T or CT, depending on who had the long haul control, this area right here that we're in, you know, a boost could be a feasible design decision, even though it seems like a very niche area in the current setup. This little area that juts out is nice for elevating your Z to peer a little bit deeper into the connector area. I kind of, you know, would draw a parallel between this area and the connector on overpass, but obviously it leads to an actual bomb site instead of leading to areas where then you can go and take a bomb site from. So it's a little bit different in terms of how it functions and what purpose it serves on the map. But as far as the geometry of it goes, you are kind of in a similar position where you're peering down in there. And, you know, just the fact that yeah, you do need a boost to get up here, by the way. But just the fact that like stuff like that is optional, I feel like the B-bomb site is one of those areas where I would really like to see some interesting gunplay. And again, gunplay on the A-bomb site isn't necessarily bad. It's just I don't think it's as like fundamentally solid as the B-bomb site one. And if you compare the B-bomb site one to the A-bomb site one, I think you find a lot more potential in the B-bomb site area where you would need to modify less to get it up to snuff with the rest of the game's high-quality maps and high-quality gunfights. And for the A-bomb site stuff, it's like, yeah, you have to modify the approach more than the bomb site itself, but the bomb site itself is also not making incredibly strong arguments for itself per se because of the size difference. So this analysis video focused a lot on the angles. One of the things that I'm trying out with these analysis videos in general is I'm trying to basically pick a fundamental principle of map design and talk about that a little bit more in one episode of my analysis series than I would in maybe another episode. Like previously, I talked about connectivity of map design in Safi, which is the map that I forgot the name of earlier. The previous episode was like about, you know, utility and choices that you can make within an area. There's bound to be some overlap between maps because I talk about a lot of the same stuff between maps in terms of, you know, here's a principle that you can judge maps on or you can use to make maps. Here's how this map fits into that principle, and so on and so forth. In this particular case, we also talked a lot about angles just because I feel like that's a pretty big deal in maps, and this map has some areas where you can learn from, both you know, positive examples of it done well in a way that I think benefits the game in general and benefits the gameplay, the gunplay that you can have, the firefights, but also in ways that are not so great, like the A approach. And I think the A approach is probably the biggest sin on this map, beyond the N64 backdrops, which were probably just done for the sake of A, rushing to meet the contest deadline, and B, handling performance. That being said, I haven't actually didn't check to see if SPA has made any updates to this map in a while, but so be it. Hopefully this video is a nice reminder that people actually still play this map, even if it's just me and nobody else. But it is a fun map, actually. Like I said, fun gameplay. I would stick mostly to the B-bomb site myself, but the A-bomb site itself is still rather interesting. So there is that. And I guess I'll leave you guys with that notion. Obviously, in the future, my other videos will have a similar format where I'm going to try to stick most of my commentary, or at least a significant portion of my analysis, and couch that within a single principle. In this case, it was angles. Previously, it was connectivity of certain areas. And hopefully that helps to provide an educational outlet for the content in ways that are not really map-specific. We're just using the map as like a jumping off point for the rest of the conversation. So, yeah. And something I didn't really talk about, but the skybox does seem to be fairly open. So props to SPA for that. And if you like this map, there will be a link to it in the description like everything else. You can go and start up some bot games with it, or you can, if you have friends, whatever those are, you can obviously play with those guys as well. And yeah, I guess that's it. So see you later. Thanks for guest starring in my video, Ahmed. Bye.